Hey, what up YouTube? Welcome back to another video. In this video, I want to discuss the differences between being light-skinned and being biracial. I know sometimes we tend to lump the two together because sometimes those two groups can sort of look interchangeable, right? You can kind of replace one with the other and you tend to have this more or less the same look. And I understand that. Sometimes I do that too in certain situations. In certain situations, I do lump light-skinned and biracial people together because I do kind of feel at times the experiences within the community and also outside of the community often intersect and, even at times just the same. You know. But of course we know, or perhaps you don't know, but there are differences between being light-skinned and being biracial. And I'm just going to go through them for a moment, discuss them for a moment. One difference is that biracial people tend to, well, not tend to, biracial people are directly mixed, as in first generational mix, as in having one parent who's black. In our case, I'm keeping this more so to, people mixed with black, obviously, So a parent who's black and a parent who's non-black of a different race. So a black parent and a non-black parent, parents of two different races, right? While the light-skinned person, their mix, and some people may even argue that there isn't a mix, but I'm going to say in this case mix. Their mixture is multi-generational, right? Where it is like the mixture has occurred over generations. Like they have to go back way, way, way back a few generations to find the like a fully white or a fully non-black relative, right? Oftentimes when we think of being mixed, we tend to think of it as black and white, of course, for obvious reasons. So that's kind of like, my frame of reference. But I know that that isn't 100% true all the time. But for this particular video, I kind of just keep it toward that. And also, I just keep it in the American context too. You know. Also, some people will say that light-skinned people, you know, experienced slavery, which they did. Light-skinned people were a part of the slavery experience in the United States. Of course, we know the separation between, folks in the house and folks in the field, but, there is still like a connection there, right? There is still a connection there, right? And, experiences and connections are important and they are very valid. Another difference is that biracial people oftentimes have a non-black influence because they are part non-black, right? And that influence, not all the time, but many times, is from the mom. The non-black influence is from the mom oftentimes. And that is, of course the dad can be a non-black influence too, of course. But lately, it's been the mom being a non-black influence. And, that is important, like, because they were raised by, a non-black person, thus having that influence, sometimes just solely raised by a non-black person. They probably weren't raised by any black people. So that's a factor when it comes to like race loyalty. On the flip side, light-skinned people, tend to be, they're raised by people who at least identify as black, right? Um, So the question of loyalty doesn't really seem to come up with, say, a person who you know is light skinned versus a person who you know is biracial. Yeah. Also, a thing to note, light skinned people can come through a combination of ways. Like, really, if you think about it, because you can have two light-skinned people come together and create a light-skinned child. You can have a light-skinned person and a dark-skinned person come together and create a light-skinned child. And you can even have two dark-skinned people come together and create a light-skinned child. That has happened. Some people have, say like, oh, like both of my parents are dark-skinned. I came out light. While biracial people, you kind of tend to be biracial, you would have to have a black parent and a non-black parent. You know? Another thing that might be a little controversial, but I'm going to put it out there. Another thing is that sometimes the features of light-skinned people versus biracial people, I think light-skinned people may tend to have features that are more Afrocoid, while biracial people tend to have features that are less Afrocoid, but that's not always 100% true though, because some biracial people do have, very Afrocoid features, while some light-skinned people tend to not have as, strong Afrocoid features. But I still kind of put that out there though. Let's see what you guys think about that. Because sometimes you can kind of tell, like, you know, a person whose skin is light, but not necessarily like racially ambiguous though, right? It's like, okay, they black. We know they black, even though they skin light, we know they're black, right? While on the other hand, if they have light skin but have like certain features that kind of look a certain way, it's like, I wonder what their mix is. What are they? Yeah. For example, as like if we compare the actress Kimberly Elise to Alicia Keys, or if we compare T-Boz from TLC to Zendaya, you kind of get what I'm saying. Y'all can understand where I'm coming from with that, though. You know. But on the flip side, though, we can compare Chris Brown and The Weeknd, who are multi-generational mix, light-skinned folks, light-skinned folks, right? To J. Cole and Drake. Some people may argue that, Chris Brown and The Weeknd may kind of seem to be more mixed looking than Drake and J. Cole. So you see, it doesn't always work 100% like that, But, it's something to think about, because sometimes it does work like that. But I'm going to bring this video to a close and ask what you guys think. Leave your comments down below in the comment section, and, do you feel that, there is a difference? Do you think it's all the same? Because some people do kind of feel like, well, it's kind of really the same. Like, mixed is mixed. If you look mixed, then, by all intensive purposes, you are mixed. But I don't know. Some people kind of think that way though. And there's like there's an argument for that. But I just, wanted to make this video just to clarify some things, and promote a discussion. So with that being said, thanks for watching. Adios and goodbye for now.